This is episode number 334 of the InnerFight podcast. Marcus Filling. Welcome to another edition of the InnerFight podcast, brought to you by Smith Street Paleo. Please hop over to iTunes, rate and review the podcast. Let us know you've done it, and we shall send you a goodie bag from Smith Street Paleo. No matter where you are in the world, thanks for tuning in. Let's jump into today's show.
Welcome back to another episode of InnerFight podcast. Today we're joined by Games veteran Marcus Filling. How are you, man?
I'm doing terrific. Thanks for having me, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah. So lately, the reason why I actually thought about we need you to come on the show is because my girlfriend, she signed up for the 12-week functional bodybuilding program about 12 weeks ago. Actually, it's about to reach the end.
Yes,
I reckon.
Week.
Yeah. And she's been talking so good about this program and how she's feeling, and she's no nickels, she's stronger than ever, all this stuff. In the beginning, I was like, yeah, functional bodybuilding, what are you talking about? And we kind of got to chat about it, and I started looking at the program and her progress, and it was just super excited to see her that happy and in that good shape, because she's always had some nickels here and there, and I think just in general, a lot of people struggle with all these nickels. But we will get into this later. I want to talk a lot about it later.
Okay. Sure.
Before that, let's just jump into your life before CrossFit, your career. Back in college, you're studying medicine. Let's take us through how you got from college to CrossFit to where you are today.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. I'll try and be brief because I can go on and on about this. But yeah, my college experience started basically with collegiate soccer, so NCAA Division I soccer at UC Berkeley. And I went to school knowing that I wanted to prioritize my education, but I also wanted to play sports if I had an opportunity to. So I was a biology major, molecular biology major, or in university, in college, however you want to say it. And then I was playing sports, and it was in college that I got introduced to true strength and conditioning. I had lifted weights and I had done training before that, but in the Division I NCAA model of strength and conditioning, you learn power cleans, power snatches, you squat, you deadlift, you bench, you do up, and you do some agility work and plyometric work. So I got kind of like put on a basic program, very basic program, similar program to the football players, the American football players were on as well. And I was playing soccer. So, but I had a profound experience. I learned a ton about, what it meant to train and have it translate to sport. To feel my athleticism improve through doing stuff in the gym, not just to build muscles, but to I could jump higher, I could sprint faster. And then, at the same time, I was also very, diving deep into my studies on biology and physiology. And so it was all happening at the same time. It was like science, actual experience on the field and in the weight room, just developing this love for the combination of understanding how physiology and nutrition play into that, and then having real life experience. And it was that combination that really, propelled my future career, is really where it started for me. I had some insight into it before college, but it really cemented there. So I knew I wanted to pursue that. And so I went into medical school post-college, thinking that I wanted to work with potentially a sick population, patients that didn't have clearance to kind of do traditional exercise and fitness programs. And that if I were to do that, then I could potentially work with a wide range of people.
Sure.
And that was kind of the thinking, but the American medical school system is a long process and it's very rigorous. And what I found was that in the first year, the year and a half of medical training, that it was going to be 8 years before I was going to be able to practice medicine in the way that I thought I wanted. And I started to feel really detached and disconnected from working with people. It's a lot of book studies and a lot of theory and a lot of stuff. Old books. There's definitely some old books in there. not all of them bad, but some of them are a little outdated. And so I just knew that I was like, I needed to get my hands dirty and start working with people more quickly. So I left medical school and I wanted to get into, health and fitness right away. And again, I'm trying not to be super long-winded here, but simultaneously I was also getting introduced to CrossFit. So this is in 2009. I'm in medical school,
2009.
and in 2008 I had done my first group CrossFit class. So I went into the full research, internet, rabbit hole of learning about CrossFit through the journal, through .com. .com used to have a laundry list of exercises and videos. I watched every single one of them multiple times. I watched all of the, the old classic CrossFitters do their benchmark workouts. And I was doing these at my school gym on my own, literally in 2009, doing squats upstairs, going downstairs to the track and running around inside. I'm doing this like at my university, medical school gym. People thought I was nuts. This was not common
This
back
soccer
then.
player.
Yeah, what the hell is this guy doing? So as I left medical school, I was like, you know what? Here's an opportunity for me to get into health and fitness coaching because look, all these people are coming to CrossFit gyms and they want to lift weights and they want to learn about the paleo diet. They want to learn. I mean, I wasn't sold that was the absolute right way to do it. There's a lot of people here that want to learn and I want to teach people. So this is a perfect combination for me to get involved.
I guess you can almost say that being a doctor and being a coach can have a lot of similarities, trying to help people get healthier and better at life in general, whether you're helping them as a prehab or rehab or however the setup is. I mean, it's sort of similar.
Yeah, very much. I mean, I look at being a fitness coach as, guiding people in the day-to-day on their, journey to make health and fitness part of their life, right? And it's like in the absence of that, when people don't do that, where do they end up? Well, they end up in the hospital or they end up with a doctor.
Yeah.
And I always knew that. I knew that I'm learning all this stuff about disease, but and this isn't true for 100% of disease, but probably the majority of disease could be prevented through the stuff that we as fitness professionals can coach people on.
Indeed.
And that to me was like, okay, well, there's a bigger bang for your buck if I go into that career than if I'm in the other career, and because what I had experienced in my own life was, health and fitness by training and eating well that enhanced my life and gave me a quality of life that I appreciated and helped me avoid being sick. And that's really what I wanted to share with people.
Yeah. I think that's the same thing all CrossFit coaches experience is that you just have so much reward every day seeing people progress. I mean, if you're a doctor, they only come to you when they're really sick and you actually never see them again potentially, only when they come back more sick. But as a coach, they might come injured or they might come weak or out of shape, and you kind of get to be there as a spectator and as a guidance the whole way and also see how they progress and kind of be there to celebrate with them. I think that's definitely one of the most rewarding things of being a coach.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I totally agree. Not being able to watch somebody take the lessons that I might teach them in a doctor's office and then go implement them, it didn't feel as fulfilling as, when I get to see people make small progress on a consistent basis, and then I can be there when they're running into challenges to help them through it.
What was it about CrossFit that kind of made you so excited about it and got yourself into it and all these things? I mean, you've done sports all your life, like you said. You've done soccer, you've been lifting weights. What was it about CrossFit that just got you so excited?
Yeah. My training before CrossFit had a lot of different looks and feels to it. I think somewhere in college, I just fell in love with the idea of training. Yeah. I mean, whether it was doing the Division I strength and conditioning, our team actually hired a conditioning coach to come in who basically, did a whole variety of different stuff with us without a lot of theory behind it, but he just worked us to death. And it was this, extreme conditioning that I had gone through, where it was the most fit I had ever felt in my life,
Yeah.
And then in the last couple of years of my college experience, I really got into bodybuilding, like, lifting Charles Poliquin methods, like German body composition.
All the old school stuff.
Oh yeah, lots of tempo training. I was doing cycling. I was doing long weekends, road cycling. And so it was like, I just wanted to try a bunch of different stuff. Right. And then on top of that, me and my buddy, the track team had giant tires and sleds, and we snuck into the track and we would do these tire workouts. And I didn't have a thinking behind what I was doing. I just wanted to try a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
And I loved the way it made me feel. And, when I combined it with good eating practices, I looked the way I wanted to look. So I was like, this is great. I got it all. And I'm just doing all these different things. And that continued for years after that, until somebody said, hey, come down and try this group class with me. It's called CrossFit. And so when I did it, and on the first day, we combined sprinting with deadlifting, with jumping. And I was like, oh, wow, look at this. This is kind of what I'd like to do.
Yeah.
That's what I've been trying to figure out on my own for some time. And now someone's put it into a very elegant, scientific kind of approach, or measurable approach. And so that's what piqued my interest. And then it's just been it's this evolution since then of, experience, reward, coaching, community, all the things. But that initially was what got me super excited. I was like, this is what I've been trying to do on my own.
Yeah.
And somebody did it. Somebody actually did it better than I could have ever thought of. Yeah.
And so you got into CrossFit, and as I know, you've been working with OPEX or OPT for a very long time, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you get to work with them right away, or how did that work out?
Pretty much right away, right?
Yeah.
So I would say, I full time started like working out at a CrossFit facility in 2009. And then 2010, I started following the OPT or OPEX online Big Dogs blog. So so I basically got into CrossFit, knew there was something exciting about it that I wanted, but then I was lost by just doing all this, there's just different I was like, I need to follow something that has, thought progression to it. Cause that's what I was used to with strength and conditioning. It was like week 1, we did back squats 5 sets. Week 2, we did back squats, with 4 reps and 3 reps and 2, every week there was a thought process to what we were doing, which helped me have structure as an athlete. I knew this back then, that I needed to have some more structure, and that doing something high intensity and totally varied every day, just given how much I had trained already in my life, actually beat me down a lot.
Yeah.
So, and then I looked up I was looking around, and of course, OPT was the first games champion, and he was a really big influence in the sport early on. And so I gravitated to him as a person. He spoke in a way that resonated with me, and then that led me to his website. And then I saw his programming, his free programming that was there, and that was, I was like, oh, this looks, kind of like something I could really connect with. And that's when I dove into to that relationship that's built ever since.
And this is 7 years back. You've been consistently on the same program for 7 years, correct?
Yes. Yes and no. The first 3 years was, or the first 2 years with them was their online group, the free online group program. But then, yes, immediately after that, I hired James as my coach. James coached me for 2.5 years. And then ever since, I've been with Mike Lee, who's also the head coach, one of the head coaches there now. So it's been a consistent, the same philosophy, same methodology. And that methodology has evolved in the time I've been there. So things that we did 7 years ago don't show up in the designs anymore.
Live and learn.
Yeah, absolutely. We all do. We need to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's very rare nowadays that you find any athletes sticking to the same program or the same coach or the same philosophy or methodology throughout the whole career. I think everyone sort of jumps around from program to program every year if they don't see success. But you have been patient and trusted the process, and I think that's a really good example of how far you can get if you actually stick to somebody and trust them.
Yeah. Yeah. The trust in the relationship has to be there first and foremost.
Yeah.
And then, truly, like, it's their philosophy and their methodologies are one thing. What the program I get is a totally different thing.
Yeah.
So, like I said, like I haven't been on the same program for 7 years. I've been on the same philosophy for 7 years. Like, everything has changed. What I do now and what you see in my training, my functional bodybuilding type, that wasn't there 4 years ago because it didn't suit me at the time. It wasn't what I needed then. It's what I need now, and it's what suits my life really well. And being able to, so athletes that jump around from program to program, it's just my theory and my thinking on this is that they need to evolve just as I needed to evolve. And if the program that they're following doesn't have, an evolution to it, or doesn't have a relationship with a coach that allows for that, then naturally they're going to go seek out something else because what's happening now needs to change. Right. And that's very much why the individual coaching model that I've followed is great for that, because if I'm getting a program written for just me, then it can change. Yeah. If I'm following a program for 200 other people, then it's hard to change that program for all 200 people.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
You're going to miss 1 week because you're sick, and you're going to miss those pause back squats and that test, and then the rest of the program will just be a mess. Yeah. That's also what I've seen lately is that just there's so many online general programs out there, and people just kind of get lost in them and confused because they get injured and go on holiday, or they realize that maybe this program actually doesn't really match their end destination or goal. I mean, for example, like a guy like you, I can imagine there's sort of other goals because of your family, and I mean, you have a daughter, there's sort of other priorities in your life, and I think that definitely an individualized program is the way to go. But I think a lot of people are just afraid of that because they don't want to train alone. So what's your solution to that?
Yeah, well, I mean, we certainly I can touch on that now. It isn't necessarily for everybody. There are elements to the individual experience that certainly I believe deeply, and I would think would make sense for a lot of people. And also to touch on what you were saying, it's like, here we're saying the individual model is, the way, or it is kind of my belief and my preference for clients. And then at the same time, what do? I'm writing a group online program for people. So we should touch on that because I don't want to sound like a contradiction. And I can be very upfront and honest and transparent about why I've chosen to do that and why I still believe people can have a great experience with individual coaching. Yeah. But you're right. It's when somebody says, I don't want to train alone, I think that we just have to look at what is their priority? What is most important to them? If most important to them is being supported by a group of people and training around others, and the only way to get that is through group fitness, then perhaps that's what they need to do, and that they sacrifice maybe the potential benefit of following an individual program. Yeah. Now, what we're doing here at our gym, and what I think is going to start, you'll start seeing more and more over the years to come, is an individual training on-site model where I have 10 members that are downstairs training, for example. Everybody has their own program, but they're all training in the same space, and therefore there's community, there's working out with others. Hey, that person might be doing pause back squats and I might be doing split squats, but we're right next to each other sharing the same, rack and the same dumbbells. And so, I think that we'll see that evolve over time too. And that, a gym, people can go into a Globo gym and they're surrounded by people and there's, an energy about that place, and not everyone's doing the same thing, but there's, some people are drawn to that. Yeah. Some people are drawn to being in a group of 10 people, everybody doing the exact same thing. Yeah. And then other people will fall into this other category. And so you just have to ask them. It's like, well, if that's the biggest priority to you, then we'll follow it. And then if they come to you in 3 months, they say, gosh, I'm not seeing results. Then you say, okay, well, let's reevaluate your priorities.
Exactly.
How badly do you want to be in with other people, and how badly do you want to start to see results because you're now following something that's really designed to what you need.
Yeah.
So.
And well, let's just kick it in with the functional bodybuilding. Now we're talking about programming and talking about generalized and individualized. What is this whole functional bodybuilding principle? Where does it come from? What's the purpose? Just give it all.
Yeah, gosh, man. So it's where to start, but the story of how I kind of came to calling it what it is, it started last fall, like in 2016. So really, my training needed to be adjusted after the game season last year. So I did the games. I played the grid season shortly after that. So it was about, let's call it all in, 5 months of intensity. Just
a long season. Right. Starts in February and grid ends in November.
It ended
October?
like October. So I was beat up, really beat up, and certainly the philosophy and the principles of this individual coaching experience that I'm on is, okay, well, I needed something different. So what my coach started to give me was give me a program that gives me a chance to heal, that gives my brain a chance to kind of calm down after being revved up for so many months, help me to regain some range of motion that I had lost from doing high speed gymnastics and grid, right? It's rough. I had some injuries that I was nursing, and so structural kind of rehab, prehab, strengthening, structural balance work needed to happen. So everything needed to slow down, and I needed to basically get away from snatch and clean and jerk and, every day, and do more stuff that was like on the other end of the spectrum, movement wise. And so my training just started to look different, and these were elements that had been in my training for the years past, but never in such a high density, because I was truly, now I'm 32, right? And I was like, I had just done the biggest season of my life, and I had just, sold my gym, and I moved to a new place. And it's like all this stuff was happening, right? Yeah. And so like I really needed to have something that looked different. And my coach responded with a program that looked like what people started to see on my social media. And it felt to me, because of the tempo training we were doing, because of all the unilateral dumbbell work, kettlebell work, carries, static hold, you name it, the things that you see, it felt like my bodybuilding days. I was like, man, this is kind of how I used to, these are some methods I used to use, right? Yeah. So I'm doing, I'm not doing the same like leg extensions that I did back in the Globo gym, but I was doing, movements that felt like that. Yeah. And so I literally just was it was a Wednesday maybe, and I just wrote like, this feels like functional bodybuilding. So I started hashtagging functional bodybuilding. And so the principles of functional bodybuilding have kind of just evolved from that in my mind, right? Like there's no textbook definition of it. There's no book written on functional bodybuilding. It's a mindset around training just as much as it is actual physiological principles of what we're doing. Yeah. It's movements that are functional, right? First you have to define function. So everyone has a little bit different definition of that, but it's like, is this applicable to your life or to your sport that you're playing? And, so doing, single, dumbbell front rack lunges, is that applicable to CrossFit? Absolutely. Sure. So that's functional for me. Yeah. Maybe not functional for somebody else, but, kind of slow controlled movements that allow you to like really engage and control, ranges of motions with muscle groups that maybe aren't firing, right? When you do like bigger compound lifts or speed lifts. Yeah. So slowing down with this intent to try and say, hey, let's wake up parts of your body that have been asleep. And then just, this like higher time under tension, in a lot of these sets, which stimulates like, it stimulates your, let's say your muscle tissues in a slightly different way than, doing high percentage, ones and twos and threes in other lifts. So, it's loosely defined principles behind it, but it really came down to just experiencing it, and had this like 3 or 4 month period of experience that was profound for me. It changed my feelings in the gym and then my recognition of what I think certain athletes that have jumped right into functional fitness, high intensity functional fitness without having years of training experience, what they missed. Because I was doing this and I'm like, oh my God, takes me back to the early days of when I lifted, when I learned how to move, when I learned how to do a pull-up, when I learned how to do a squat, right? I didn't learn how to do a squat, with a PVC pipe. I learned how to do a squat when I was 13, 14, 15, all the way through 20. Yeah. So I came in, fortunately, to CrossFit with a huge training experience. I mean, someone said, hey, that's a kipping pull-up. I did 20. It wasn't like I had to learn, and I did that because I had done this type of training for so long. So here I am, 15 years later, revisiting that training in a new way that was fun, that was, definitely outside the box of what a lot of people have seen. And it re-emphasized the importance of this kind of base training that needs to happen underneath all of the dynamic, fast time, 4-time fatigue-based stuff that we do. And it's really, it is the philosophy that, I've coached for and I've been coached for, with for years, but sort of like taken to another level. So I give a ton of credit to my coach, from OPEX, Mike Lee, for laying out the structure of this, and then on top of the structure that he gave me, my experience for the past 15 years allowed me to see the value in this, that could transcend just myself as an athlete in my off season for the CrossFit Games. Yeah. It was, how could this be a benefit to other people? And I started to really play with the idea of how could we, write some different designs, take some of these methods that I had used in my training, and then, give people exposure to what that looks like, a broader audience.
I definitely think one thing that stuck with me is that the base building. I mean, that's one thing you see when people come new into CrossFit and they might not have that base you're talking about, the 10 years of experience bodybuilding your 13 and 14 and up through your 20s. And I think that's just such a sort of a massive problem because they get into this super high intensity sport, and in a group of 30 people in one class, that can be really hard to control. And that's why I think, well, a lot of people get injured, and that's why they get so excited about this whole functional bodybuilding movement, let's call it that.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right, 100%, right? You have to earn the right to go intense. Do you know what I mean? Like, the idea of universal scalability of a fitness principle, right? Well, if we're going to really scale it back to where somebody's at, then guess what they're doing? They're doing tempo goblet squats with a TheraBand around their knees.
Yeah.
Okay, functional bodybuilding, right?
Exactly.
That's going to get them to, a body weight back squat faster than just slapping a bar on their back and saying, okay, go for it. Here's five sets of 5, right? There's going to be a small group of people that do okay in that, where they just kind of, the chaos of just following a high intensity plan. Yeah. But all the best, all the best progress people make in that setting are when the coaching is excellent, when things are scaled precisely to where that person is.
Yeah.
And as you know, with 20 people in a room, that can be hard to do.
Yeah, you got to run fast.
And
you got to convince people that are really stubborn, and that can be difficult, but you just have to be even more stubborn. And
yeah, but when you tell somebody that, hey, when I have the first conversation with you about fitness, and I say, hey, this is going to be a slow process. It's going to take this long. You're going to have to build the basics first. You're going to have to build, the foundation. And they're like, yeah, I'm into that. Yeah. Then they're not going to be the stubborn client. If they're like, no, I don't want that. Yeah. I want to be there tomorrow. Then be like, hey, maybe this isn't for you. Yeah. I'm not the right coach for you.
Yeah.
Right. So you just have to set that expectation at the beginning with clients. But you're right. It's because, well, hey, I got this thing. Go jump in it right now. Right.
Kipping pull-ups. Like, here you go.
Yeah. So anyhow, but I'm glad that phrase, base building really resonates, and base building needs to happen for as long as people are training.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes you can go back and do it. even
Yeah,
if you moved
exactly.
on to it.
Yeah, so here I am returning every single season,
Yeah.
and certain athletes that have been in the sport longer, every single season they have to return to it
Yeah.
because everyone has a breaking point. If you keep hitting that intensity over and over and over and over and over again, you will burn out. But if you come back to the base building, that can be a way to progress and to heal and to improve kind of your energy levels and your kind of brain state leading into another season. So great off-season type training, and then great principles that can kind of be sprinkled in throughout a training year if you're trying to be competitive in a sport.
Yeah.
And if you're just trying to be a health and fitness, like, you just want to be strong, healthy, have some, train for longevity. It's really truly my belief that these types of training principles should sit in your, ongoing year-round program. And that it can be, and the good thing is that it's not bodybuilding, because we're not just doing the same, machine-based reps that can potentially get repetitive and let's call it boring for some people. Yeah. We're taking some functional movements that have maybe a more potent effect on people's overall kind of health and well-being, and gives them some strength that they can apply into their life. And now we have like a lot more movements and a lot more fun stuff that we can mix in to keep it varied, as people do tend to really enjoy, for training for longevity. It's like there's not many people that can bench press and do pull-ups every Monday for the rest of their lives. There's a few.
You've had few deloads yourself. I mean, you didn't compete this year. I know a lot of things went on, and you also had like 1 year off 2 years ago, something like that in between the seasons. Talk to us of the importance of that and how that can make you continue to compete if that's what you're interested in,
Yeah, so I mean, I think it starts with just me approaching fitness is something that I want to do for the rest of my life. I was as I said in this conversation, I was training for the sake of training before CrossFit I was even aware of it. Right? Yeah. I mean, I was on a schedule of Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, weight room, right? Wednesday, I would go to the track and do sprint work.
Yeah.
Saturday, I would go for a long bike ride. And Sunday, I would go for a hike with my friends, right? So here I am. I'm filling out my life around training. Yeah. And I want to do this for a long time, okay? Before CrossFit, I had experiences of feeling really good and balanced and feeling overtrained and injured. Yeah. So I already knew, gosh, when I get overtrained and injured, I'm not happy. Fitness sucks. I don't like it, right? So all of this stuff, I already knew, like, this is what I want to feel like, and I'm going to keep pursuing that. And then CrossFit came into my life. And for 5 years, I just fell into the rat race of, CrossFit. Yeah. Every year, train, open regionals games. I did that for 5 years. And I was just like, I got to get better. And I kind of lost sight of, I love training for training. I love to feel good when I train. And those two things aren't necessarily the priority when you're competing in CrossFit. No. They kind of fall down. You don't feel that good.
Especially if you're going back-to-back seasons, that's almost impossible.
Yeah, and it's not always about the love of training.
No.
Trust me. I mean, jumping on the rower and doing, 1K intervals for an hour and a half, it's not always for the love of training. It's because the regionals is coming up and you got to be ready, right? Yeah. So I think I got to 2015, and I was kind of in that, like, okay, I got to compete again. I just was at the games. I'm going to, and it just stopped feeling right. Like I started to have those, it started to become clear to me. I was like, something just doesn't feel right. Like I'm just not in it the way I used to be. It was burnout, it was overtraining. It was whatever you want to call it. My mom got sick at the time. So that was a very clear, like, message to me. Like,
yeah, there's other things in life.
There's so many other things right now that this can't be the number one. And you're not even enjoying it right now. So just listen and take the time off.
Yeah.
So, and then, come to this year, I was in a different place mentally. I mean, I had a good 2016 season, and I had this really, as I already talked about it, this great off season where functional bodybuilding, everything. I felt good. I was coming back. I was ready for the season. But I knew my daughter was going to be born in February, and I'd never been a parent before. I had no idea what that was going to be like. Right? Everyone said it was going to be hard. I see that there's other athletes that are out there in the CrossFit sport that have young kids that compete. So I was like, okay, well, maybe I can do this. And I think I realized really quickly that I wasn't going to be able to do it the way I wanted to do it. I wasn't going to be able to bring the level of focus and intensity, because it's mental, emotional, and physical, all of the above. And my mental and emotional and physical energy also needed to be going towards this person, my wife and this baby.
Yeah.
And so again, it was like, look at the big picture for me, and it didn't make sense for me to compete. So so that of course changed my training for the coming months. I wasn't doing open workouts. I wasn't training for regionals. I was doing something different. And I'm still finding a ton of joy in training. People ask me, are you going to compete next year? And I say, well, maybe, like if everything lines up, and I have the space to say, I'm going to do this because it's for me, right? I'm not doing it for anybody else. Like, am I competing? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go do this. So yeah, that's where the year took. And I think that, your original question was, how does that impact somebody's ability to kind of stay in the game a long time?
Yeah.
For me, it's without those breaks, I'm not sure I'd be here today doing what I'm doing. I needed that time away and to create space from a sport of super laser focus to get back to that old, mentality I had, which is like, I want to train to feel great. I want to keep a healthy balance, in my life. And I'm excited for just training. And I need to get back to that. And then when I go back to the sport, know that I'm doing it, and it's like, it's a defined time period, and I'm not going to love it, every moment, and I'm not going to feel good every moment. But every month that I have feeling good and training well and sleeping good and not having injuries, I'm like, oh yeah, I want to get back out there and compete. Like, I got to build that fire again, because the fire burns out for me. And I know it burns out for people out there who are listening, and they're like, yeah, I don't have the fire like I used to have. It's like, okay, well, it's okay to stop. It's okay to take a break, right? People will not think less of you. You can pursue other interests and then come back to it when the fire builds again.
Exactly. And no matter what age you are, if you still want to compete, there's selecting masters and everything. And I really think you're a big role model for a lot of people out there that are in that situation where they have to go injured for 1 month, and then they train for 1 week, and then they're injured for another month, and so on. And the quality of the work is just terrible, because they go back too hard, too high intensity, and I think it's great for many to see that a top athlete like you have the courage to take a year off and just go back to basics, build that good foundation, tempo everything, unilateral work, which I actually want to talk about as well, because you must have been extremely happy or excited to see regionals this year with all the unilateral work, one arm, one leg, and everything. It's definitely something that's been
not
missing.
As happy as I would have been if I had actually been competing.
Of course not.
If I was actually competing, I would have been really happy. But yeah, no, it's good to see that kind of stuff. And it is something that, I got to hand it to CrossFit, the CrossFit Games and the directors. I think they do a good job of helping to steer fitness, like the trends in fitness with the games programming and regionals programming, the open programming. Something as simple as like, hey, there's dumbbells. Well, now more people are going to train with dumbbells, or, hey, look, we can do a whole regionals with no barbell. What do you think? And so it gets people to expand their thinking about how, because all that trickles down to the affiliate. And so I think that's great. I just want to go back just for a second to just say that, you know, it started with me knowing why I do this in the first place. And I think people get away from that sometimes when they're just competing so much, is that it's like I'm chasing a podium. It's like because it's there, and they don't ask themselves like, is this really, why am I really doing this? And when I, you know, over the course of my training career, you know, I recognized that being hurt, this didn't feel good to me. And so if I started to feel hurt, I knew that taking 3 or 4 or 5 days off of training was a better choice for me than trying to push through it and run the risk of making it worse.
Yeah.
So, you know, you had given the example of somebody who trains for a week, you know, injured for a month, like that cycle where they're just not having quality training.
Yeah.
You know, people ask me like, you take rest days, and I'm like, hell yeah, I take rest days. I'll take rest weeks. I don't care. I care about feeling good and knowing that if I feel good, I'm going to come back and I'm going to train so much better. So, you know, I just want to highlight the point that if you don't know why you're doing it and you haven't like really prioritized what is most important to you with this thing, then, you know, you may as well just, you know, fall victim to all that stuff that's happening out there.
Yeah. They just open Instagram and they get confused. That's how it is. Because if no big athletes ever share that they actually do deload week, because it's not cool to deload and it's not cool to rest, and I think people just get kind of confused. They're like, shit, these guys never rest. They just train so hard. They just lift all these weights, do all these crazy gymnastic complexes, and they're never injured. And I saw that early on. Because I was kind of in that same confused boat too. I was seeing my competitors early on, and I was like, how are these people doing this all the time? Like, I'm crushed over here. Then I come to find out that it's all bullshit. You know, people aren't really out there every day hitting it that hard. Even the ones that look like they are, you know, they're doing certain things that are thoughtful and smart and taking breaks. And I had to kind of be on the inside of it to see it and to know it and to learn it. It's definitely, you're right. It's definitely a confusing world out there. And I think that what people have been drawn to with my social media is that from the beginning, I've tried to just make it about my experience, right? There's good parts, there's bad parts, there's, you know, there's deloads, there's rests, there's different types of training. You know, there's stuff that I do that's easy, there's stuff that I do that's hard. You know, granted, in the last probably 6 months to a year, you know, I recognize what people want to see on my Instagram channel, and I try and give them a lot of that. I try and give them content that they can maybe take notes from and put into their own training. So, you know, the personal life posts that I put up are fewer and far between than they used to be. But, you know, I'm also just recognizing what the feedback that I'm getting, and I'm trying to just provide a consistent message. But I don't shy away from letting people know that, hey, it's, you know, I'm doing this, and look at, these are my 1K row splits today. And people are like, a 155? That's not too fast. And I'm like, no, it's not too fast. It's supposed to be easy today. Just human.
Yeah, I'm just going. It's like, I'm not trying to crush it. You know, some days are about going 75%.
Yeah, that is very rare. Let's jump a little bit into the future for you and what exactly you do today. You provide the functional bodybuilding program, which is a 12-week program. Is there going to be a follow-up now that it ends now, or how is that going to work? Yeah,
so this ties into kind of that topic we touched on before, which is individual versus group. And like, you know, while there might be a lot of advantages to an individual group training model, and there are people that aren't ready for that, and there are people that want exposure to different types of training.
Yeah.
And that's just what I want to offer. I want to offer exposure to a certain type of training. You know, sound training methods that are not about high intensity all the time, and making them fixed around a 12-week training cycle.
I mean, also kind of makes it a bit more safe since that intensity isn't really there. Like, you're not telling me to do 100 back squats like as fast as possible and see how it goes.
No, they can find that other places. There's plenty of people that do that. So,
exactly.
There's some intensity for sure. I mean, definitely speak to people that have done the program that, you know, we kind of rotate throughout the week, days that are harder, days that are easier.
Yeah.
The last couple weeks, you know, this is the 12th week of the program. There's some testing, some more maxes and things like that, which is just the nature of any thoughtful periodized training program. It's like you start and you build and you build and you build. And that's what I want people to recognize. And there will be a follow-up series to it, and potentially more in the future. But they're all going to be based around these same concepts, right? Like people ask me like, okay, so are we going to start doing more Olympic lifting in this? And I'm like, no, that's not really what this is about. You know, it's, if you want to have a progressive long-term, training program that builds you to the open, get on a individual training program, hire a coach, then we can do that for you. But for a group of people that want to get exposure to this and train, feel good, not be beat up, not be, then it's going to stick to some of the principles and most of the principles that we saw in the first 12-week program. And it's called the Awaken Training Series. And I gave it that name because, Awaken to me is what this experience can be like for people. It's like, it's an awakening. It's like, man, I didn't know you could train like that and still make progress and still have fun and still look good. It's about awakening muscle groups in your body that you maybe haven't felt in a while. And it's a training series because there is going to be a future of it where we'll have, probably multiple, programs that people, if they jump in at the first one, they can progress through if they'd like. And again, so that's one of the programs that we offer here at Revival Strength. So Revival Strength is my coaching business. We have three coaches that do remote individual coaching. We also have an on-site program. So people that live in our local area come and they get individual programs. They are able to train here under the watchful eye of our coaches, and then kind of experience that community feel as well.
Awesome. So
all that happens, through revivalstrength.com. And currently, I'm trying to get people to head over there. We're releasing the Awaken Training Series on July 10th.
Okay. Awesome.
So this coming week, there's registrations going to be open for it. If people go to revival-strength.com, there's an email sign up. And if you sign up for the email, you get the first 3 days of the program for free to go and try. So you got basically 14 days until the program launches to go try it and see if this is something that might work for you. And then it's a 12-week program that will take you pretty much through July, August, and most of September.
Yeah, and you have to stick for 12 weeks to actually see some progress and trust the process.
Yeah. The question people ask is like, oh, can I do this and just combine it with these other programs? And,
No.
My recommendation is to, for those people, I say, give it 4 weeks of just doing this, right? Now, if after 4 weeks you feel like you need more, then maybe you can go do more. But, I don't believe it's I'm not trying to give it as an add-on to, the Oli cycle that you're on or this. I think it's an all-encompassing program that is really right for a certain type of person. And when I wrote it, I was like, this probably isn't the best for like a competitive athlete, like a competitive CrossFitter. Like they probably should follow something different. And turns out I didn't think so. And then I had like 3 or 4 competitive CrossFitters, like relatively high level, people that have been to the games on teams and individually that did the program. And they're like, this is awesome. And they had great success. So, what I used to think I had some preconceived notions about who it was for, I think it's actually great for a wider audience because it's showing training principles that people have just moved far away from over time. And so even, experienced and, novice athletes can benefit from just having exposure to that. Just change your thinking around it.
And to some extent, effort is a choice. So you can follow all the programs you want, but if you don't put in the work, like if you have a games athlete who starts following this fairly basic program, but he puts in the work, like real grind, of course you'll see great progress. I think almost no matter what program you follow, if you follow it strictly and it's thought through, and you'll see progress. And I definitely hope that a lot of our listeners will hop over to your site and sign up. I have seen my girlfriend progress like crazy with it. I have implemented plenty of like these exercises and the mindset behind it into my own programming, and I feel way better. And I definitely reckon that a lot of people will experience a big change in their athletic career if they start doing this.
Man, this is a great soundbite. I'm going to take that and just throw that on the page, man. No, I appreciate that. Those positive words about it all, and I agree. I think there's a lot to gain out there for people by getting exposure to this type of training, and as I said, just passing on information that was passed down to me by experienced people, and hoping that I can fulfill on that mission that I had when I went to medical school, which was to reach a lot, like to help a lot of people feel better and be healthier, and I think that this is part of that vision being manifested.
Man, thanks for sharing your amazing mindset and vision, and we wish you all the best, and I can't wait to share this episode with our listeners. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
Talk to you soon. We'll stay in contact.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Thanks a lot for tuning into this episode of the show, folks, and I do hope you've enjoyed it. As always, if you have any questions or queries, drop us an email, winning@innerfight.com. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.